Northwest call running in place of Charm Center, Metro 25, Northeast 137. Caller wants to report presence from the son of a 17. They're very angry and said that they threatened to throw her at the place. She's in hospital now. She's 109 and they're running in place of her.
The Arpeggione Sonata in A minor Deutsch 821, music of Franz Schubert, as played by violist Nabucco Imai. Roger Vignoles was the pianist there. Some music that you're going to hear in Seattle in June of 2014 as the concluding concert in the inaugural season of the Byron Schenkman and Friends Chamber Music Series. Those are Sunday evening concerts at 7 o'clock in the Nordstrom Recital Hall in Benaroya Hall. The Schubert Arpeggione Sonata will be on the June 15th program, along with the Schubert Trout Quintet. Byron Schenkman and his wonderful friends, wonderful musicians and artists will be presenting Schubert that evening. That's information from our new season showcase file. King.org/new season is the place to go to find out more. Thanks for listening this afternoon. I'm Dave Beck here with listener-supported classical King FM.
Support for King FM comes from the Seattle Symphony Free Day of Music, Sunday, September 22nd, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Benaroya Hall. Hear dozens of local artists on 5 stages in and around Benaroya Hall, from classical and jazz to rock, hip-hop, and more, plus 2 performances by the Seattle Symphony. For more information, visit seattlesymphony.org.
The early music specialist Kevin Mallon is coming to Seattle in March of 2014 to lead Seattle Baroque in a concert presented by the Early Music Guild. Here's one of his recordings with the Toronto Chamber Orchestra. Kevin Mallon leading this performance of a Sinfonia in A major by Leopold Mozart here on listener-supported Classical King 98.1.
There is a male on the roof. I don't see it. I'll give you a free employee, 789-366. She hired you to work on her roof. Can you have her come out? Okay. Okay, I'm talking to her now. It's under control. Everything is clear. You're under control. Under control.
Sinfonia in A major by Leopold Mozart, the Toronto Chamber Orchestra there, led by Kevin Mallon, who's an early music specialist who's going to be visiting Seattle in March of 2014. A concert presented by the Early Music Guild of Seattle, featuring Seattle Forum. Kevin Mallon will be directing that performance, and he's a very interesting fellow, raised in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and in addition to his expertise in early music, he loves and plays traditional Irish fiddle music, interested in the art of the Balinese gamelan, and in contemporary jazz. Kevin Mallon will be in Seattle on March 29th. More information about that concert with Seattle Love at our new season showcase page. Search for it at king.org.
Hi, I'm Mike Lewis, host of King FM's Musical Chairs, our weekly visit with the people who make the Northwest music scene vibrant and lively. We'll find out what motivates and challenges those who choose a life in music, and share with you the music that inspires them. Musical Chairs, Friday night at 7 on 98.1 Classical King FM. Musical Chairs is brought to you by Village Bay Cafe and Catering.
Good afternoon, I'm Dave Beck. Thanks for joining us on KING-FM in Seattle at 98.1, on HD Channel 1, online at king.org, and through our King FM smartphone apps. King FM, thanks to you, is listener-supported classical music. We have a Schumann piano trio in D minor later this hour, and right now the 6th Brandenburg Concerto in B-flat major by Johann Sebastian Bach, Apollo's Fire, led here by an artist coming to Seattle in January of 2014. We'll tell you more about that. Jeanette Sorrell is the director of this performance.
Demonstrate back. I can show Washington Pacific Ocean for full close, golden colors, crystal.
John 01 copy of full, that's 444, 90 Indian Ocean, outstanding.
Brandenburg Concerto number 6 in B-flat major, Johann Sebastian Bach's music played by the ensemble Apollo's Fire. You enjoy their recordings. Jeanette Sorel, the director of that ensemble, viola front and center there in the music of Bach. Here on listener-supported Classical King at 98.1, Jeanette Sorel will be in Seattle in January of 2014 for an evening of Baroque music, a program called Zimmermann's Coffee House, recreating the scene in Leipzig in the 18th century when Bach and his friends and students got together and played the latest music of the day, including Bach's own compositions. That concert in January 2014 in Benaroya Hall will feature some wonderful players of the Seattle Symphony, the horn player Mark Robbins, Cordula Merckx violin, Lisa Barston violin, and Jeanette Sorel, this early music specialist with Apollo's Fire, will be leading that performance, directing from the harpsichord. New season showcase information like that available at king.org. Search for New Season.
Support for King FM comes from Pacific Northwest Ballet, presenting Air Twyla, a trio of Twyla Tharp works including a world premiere collaboration with R&B legend Alan Toussaint, and all were numbered to the music of Frank Sinatra. Tickets available at pnv.org.
We take great pride here at listener-supported Classical King FM 98.1 in Seattle in the way we're using technology to accommodate your various needs and tastes and desires when it comes to classical music and the arts. We've got several streaming options. We've got a channel that is devoted to symphonic music, a channel that's devoted to arts interviews, and one called the Evergreen Channel that brings you calm amid the chaos of your workday. It's hosted by Brad Eaton. Very carefully selected classical music that helps you relax and unwind. So whatever your tastes, use our King FM smartphone apps or our 3 HD channels, or go online at king.org. We've got a lot of listening options for you. Some Schumann next this afternoon, Piano Trio number 1 in D minor, opus 63, played here by the Vienna Piano Trio on Classical King FM.
a police call. They're saying the parking lot of 589 University Way Northeast. There's some females and females being taking off their clothes, putting them back on, and people been protesting them all day, handing off something. Two white males, one had a blue stocking cap, a white female, a gray stocking cap. The 2 Lincoln 3 is primary. Temporary unverified misdemeanor warrant pickup at the Ronald McDonald House, 9130, 40 North Gable. Is the unverified can actually check on the warrant for a subject that the staff there said that they would be reporting. He said if you waited out front, Justice Embry, 730 and 18, you'll want now 31, 510, you can get over in a red shirt. Thank you, watch out. Surgery.
him? Okay. Okay. Just give me a second. I'm filling out a card for you.
Okay.
So, when did this happen?
I don't know exactly. You took a picture with your phone, so it'd be
Were you in the car?
Yeah, I was in the car back first. I stopped. I was looking at the mirror. I didn't see anything. The insurance was like punched.
So you backed into them?
I'm not sure what happened. Coming off the street.
Okay, but you were backing up at the
I was
time?
backing up.
Okay.
It was less than
Hi. Yeah, no problem.
between maybe 1 and 5 miles per hour.
Okay.
Or towards
How much damage is there to your car? Did they, and they didn't stop?
Stopped. I got in the car. I said, "Oh, there's some damage." And we went out to do this insurance information. I went to the car. I went in the house place. I pulled in their spot to get this car.
Washington 751 Young, Young, and then 83rd 17 Northwest.
Racing 83rd 17 Northwest 751 of Young John.
Young Queen Young. Affirmative, it's part of his crane call, the one he's done.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How much damage is there to your car?
Reflector and then the bumper's all scratched.
Are my partners logged in anything right now? Okay, can we log into a follow-up at 1113 Northwest 54th Street?
1113 Northwest 54th Street on a follow-up.
Nobody out front except for the clown on the bench.
Claim wish to remain anonymous, although their names on the call.
I usually fill one out myself too.
Car 3 copy.
I didn't.
Union 13 with Union 14 to back.
Union 13. 14.
We'll do an area check for a male selling narcotics. At 2200 Northeast 88th Street, he was seen selling narcotics. They thought it might be cocaine, and then left the vehicle on no direction of travel. Said it was like Ford Bronco or Blazer, Adam Boyd Frank, 345, white note 45, blonde. The beard, wear a white t-shirt, blue jeans.
Union 13 copy. Down here, 1, that Honda garage back on scene.
John 01 copy, is there units that can drive that way? Sharp to look. The parking lot will stay with you, we're up north. North 21, north 22.
Car 22.
John 01 call, for a 7 car block hold.
John 2, right now. Yard 12.
Hold on 1 second.
I've had a couple people run into my parked car with them, and they didn't get mad at me. Like, one time I didn't have any information.
So did you claim? Yeah, no, I said, hey, right.
That's a black male, black sweatshirt. Their pants is heading down Aurora northbound.
Aurora.
Glad we didn't lock it.
I'm glad nobody was hurt.
You were actually
Was the
really
lady-
fast too, considering it was a non-response.
No problem.
Down to 1. Sorry, cut this. Passenger, hold on.
Copy northbound.
Down to 1, I got no back off ramp 63 and within right next to the longboat.
Green Woodman.
Hang on there, need some more stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a good day.
Glad nobody's hurt.
Copy. Ground.
Thank you. John 01, I want to clarify you've got both subjects in custody.
John 0 neighbor, there's a total of 5 in total.
Green.
Channel 197 at 63 and
Chapter 1, we're right in the parking area next to lawn pole. We've got 2 in custody and we got 3 in the back seat with the holster visible. They just run out of cuffs at this point.
Norfolk parking 63 1.
Dave?
Copy.
Lincoln 1, can you return to the Ronald McDonald?
Copy. That's begin at 2.23.
423, go ahead.
Aircraft SP stolen 751 Young, Queen Young, should be a 96 New Cherokee red in color.
Music of Robert Schumann this afternoon here on listener-supported Classical King FM at 98.1. Piano Trio number 1 in D minor, Opus 63, played there by the Vienna Piano Trio. That music is going to be on the Seattle Chamber Music Society's Winter Festival concerts. They'll be playing the Schumann on January 24th in the Nordstrom Recital Hall at Benaroya Hall during the Winter Festival. Find out complete information about the Seattle Chamber Music Society offerings this winter by going to our New Season Showcase, king.org. Search for the phrase New Season. Familiar tune in this next divertimento by Haydn for winds. You'll hear the St. Anthony chorale woven in here. Performance by Ensemble Vienna Berlin on Classical King FM.
Can you verify Washington 93 Young Ocean?
Vertical. Zulu 361, mileage 01.3. 1654.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1.
Is 708 still on here? That's pushing north back. affirmative. We have one in the custody. Can you go ahead and verify the one?
Can you switch the data to have that verified?
So, the broken tail light and the bumper. Okay. Oh, you killed your battery? Okay. Let me just make sure I got a good phone number for you guys.
Two and
779-8484. All right, great. And you're Casey.
For welfare check. 25
right.
Northeast 49, color side confused, elderly male wandering around.
Casey was the suspect?
All
right. You know, I might call you back after I do a little research. Okay, Evan, what's your last name?
Evan Calhoun, C-L-H-O-U-N. My wife is she's 19.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. You need some, sir?
Verified entity stolen for Honda Accord, golden color, 93 young,
Louis Bates from soprano Rachel Policar. That's Friday night, 8 o'clock, live music from some gifted young artists, our studios. Let's focus live here on Classical King FM.
Support for King FM comes from Art Dance Hall, dedicated to connecting the community with the art form of dance, offering child, youth, and adult ballet, professional training, and educational outreach throughout the year. Info about dance and fitness classes, enrollment, and events at Art Dance.
Time you made a contribution to King FM? Has it been about a year or more? Your membership makes a difference, but time marches on. This great music is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. King FM is listeners supported. We rely on you. Renewing your membership is so important and it's easy to do. So renew online now at king.org or call us 1-888-598-9810. When you're done, you can get lost in the music all over again for another year.
Good afternoon, I'm Dave Beck. Stay with us here at Classical King FM at 98.1. Marta Zekan will be along in just a moment with 5 for the drive, including the ethereal sounds of the planet Neptune emanating from the imagination of Gustav Holst. Neptune from the Planets is coming up on 5 for the drive. Also another Andras Schiff recording in anticipation of his recital in Benaroya Hall in October. He'll play a Mozart piano concerto. Stay with us here on Classical King FM.
Support for King FM comes from PCC Natural Markets. PCC welcomes fall with it local organic apples, pears, and more from family farms and ranchers east of the mountains with 9 neighborhood locations. More at pccnaturalmarkets.com. King FM's 5 for the Drive is brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
Now, listener supported, this is 98.1 Classical KING FM CF. I'm Marta Zekan. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 5 for the drive time, 5 great short pieces, back to back, beginning with this one. Johannes Brahms, Hungarian dance number 16. He wrote 21 of these. Claudio Abbado and the Vienna Philharmonic in our
620.
9000 block Aurora, out of Union at 8461.
Tower 39 control.
Repeat copy here. bacon in a black Kia Soul and a black Honda Civic.
A fairly new piece of music composed in 2005 by the young, very distinguished composer Subaram Raman. His aria for saxophone and orchestra. Craig Bunnitzak and the Beethoven Academy Orchestra in that recording on King FM. Speaking of arias, don't forget Saturday night at the Opera this week on King FM. It's a beautiful production of Romeo and Juliet by Charles Gounod that begins at 8 o'clock on Saturday. Here is pianist Colleen Lee with one of Domenico Scarlatti's keyboard sonatas. Colleen Lee and one of the keyboard sonatas by Domenico Scarlatti, early 18th century composer. Much later in the 18th and traveling into the 19th century, Domenico Cimarosa wrote a lot of operas. This is the overture from Le Stravaganze del Conte, Patrick Galois in the Sinfonia Finlandia Jyväskylä on King FM.
gonna go for it.
The overture from this composer's very first opera, Domenico Cimarosa's La Stravaganza del Conte, The Extravagances of the Count, Patrick Gallois in Sinfonia Finlandia Jyväskylä. In that recording, a brand new release that came out in August. We're going to wrap up 5 for the drive on King FM with this. Composer Gustav Holst, you probably know, or maybe not, was an astrologer and was fascinated with the aspects of the planets. That's what inspired his symphonic suite, The Planets. We hear the final movement, the beautiful Neptune, the Mystic.
vehicle, so partially blocking the on-ramp of Kansas Parkway at Easley National Northeast, just before the bridge. The dust could have been a blue color with a camper that is located at the northeast of Kansas Parkway, called on-ramp.
Symphonic Suite, The Planets. The first piece to really write a fade out into the score. In its early performances, he would place the female chorus off stage and behind a door that would gradually close to help fade them out at the end. Mark Elder and the LA Orchestra and Choir in this great work of music. Wrapping up 5 for the Drive on King FM. By the way, you can hear The Planets courtesy of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra next June.
King FM's 5 for the Drive is brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
Tonight at 6 o'clock on King FM, don't miss another in the Little Secrets series that Lisa Bergman has put together for a 2-minute-and-a-half musical adventure called Exploring Music. That's tonight at 6 p.m. on King FM. Here is a piano sonata by Mozart next. This is nicknamed the trumpeter because there's a very clear horn call at the very beginning of this. You'll hear it right away, and then listen to what Mozart does with it because it's pretty fun. It's also sometimes called the hunt, and play it for us on Rush Shift.
Chapter 1.
I'm not, but I can head back to the game.
Could you just go to North Jackson? Harbor 6 will be on en route to Lake Washington on my call.
Harbor 6. Regarding cashier at the store that apparently lost in the house. They want contact. They're stuck outside. Apparently she's a highly educated female wearing a yellow sweatshirt.
They're stuck outside. Looking 22 around.
Didn't expect that they were shoplifting or confronting them about it. They were in some type of argument. And then he hit her arms at the door walking the house. That's what it is. 025, they're actually on Northeast 41st Street in a parking lot. The campus sign right.
Where you see that drove right by me, down on the back.
It's over the plate now.
So there's a bus.
Good enough. He's drove to Zealand, did
Got it. Car 32 driving. North 22, go ahead.
Verifies your SPD stolen. 0660 and Mr. John on 1981 is in a quarter black color.
Copy. Has both plates, appears drivable.
Lincoln 12, Lincoln 22 back.
Lincoln 22.
Mr. Perkins, Cedar Park, 3737 Northeast 135 for video about something narcotics in the park. Says unknown male TV wearing a had khaki shorts, two unknown females. One had camel pants, and that red shirt, dark pants.
Mozart's last piano sonata, the number 18, Andras Schiff at the keyboard in this recording. Andras Schiff will be here in Seattle, by the way, October the 11th in recital. Great opportunity to hear him, part of Seattle Symphony's Distinguished Artist Series.
Support for King FM comes from Beacon Plumbing, providing residential and commercial plumbing, heating and cooling service, repair and more, including furnace and heat pump tune-ups for cooler weather, same-day service and 24/7 emergency calls. All at 800 Freakin' and online at beaconplumbing.net. Portage Bay Catering, offering local and sustainable dishes with fresh ingredients and customized menus. Portage Bay Catering offers 3 private event venues. Details at portagebaycafe.com.
Hear music by Mozart in the very rooms where he lived. Celebrate the 200th birthday of Franz Liszt and revel in the delightful waltzes of Strauss. These are just a few reasons for you to join King FM's Winter Waltz Tour this December. Learn more at king.org/traveling.
We'll dance our way out of the 5 o'clock hour with something by Adolphe Adam, probably best known for his ballet Giselle, which PNB will be bringing back to the stage next spring. This is the one that came just before it, La Jolie Fille de Gand, the Young Lady of Ghent. The beginning of this ballet takes place in a goldsmith's shop where a dancing master is teaching the goldsmith's 2 daughters and their much more talented cousin how to dance. It's called Cesarius's Shop. Andrew Mogrelia and the Queensland Symphony Orchestra in Act 1, Scene 1 of La Jolie Fille de Gand.